had no choice. I know.
Marylou's back.
Get my good side now.
We're not down that low. Just your upper back.
I know.
Yes, Pat. I trust you. I'll walk away.
I think that was a crowd scene we had in
Well,
there.
I was trying to figure out if it was this camera and facing out. I just didn't want.
Certainly not. If it was a camera, we usually we're up the road. What's your plan? Fall apart? Well, I'm just thinking if it's too bad, Kurt and I can
Yes, everything's
not
written
to their
down.
side.
Little black bag operations.
So I'll put it over the next drag ball. Stop.
Yeah. Hi, I'm not sure. Thank you. I'm Pat. I want to go. And I got my nature. Hi, I'm Choir.
Taking care of.
Sit here. That's very nice. Don't get me.
Thank you. How are you?
She's not actually.
Maybe throwing these toys already. I feel the middle down. Our Jack, she was Sheila, but we see Jack because he was going to call. We were going to suggest he call. Okay. I was just going to check to see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so 82 south, one north, and then looking through 476 to the Oh, nice to meet you. Thank you. And very So you were privileged. Yeah. My husband gave
my father, and then we did Collingdale to move up. And another 365. Yeah. My 365 Mustang.
Yeah, he was traveling. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for being there for me too. Okay, we probably yeah, yeah. It's hard not to. Thanks for coming.
Hello. Oh, I'm Fred Hogue. I do Godfrey Church.
Okay. Yeah. He was. That's right. And he was very right. Hi, I'm Pat.
You got a good memory. I didn't introduce myself.
Well, I should have recognized your last name. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Good. Everybody knows. Okay. My husband, Dave. Meyer, and she was the person that died. Okay. Got yourself pregnant.
Enough to go outside and stand right outside of the bedroom window.
They recognize you smell it. Yeah. They recognize you smell it.
She's sitting over there. She's sitting right behind my nephew, Nancy. You can drive this car. That's my nephew, Ronnie. No, it's right on that. Yes. Nice now.
Grace be unto you and peace from God our Father and our Lord Jesus Christ. The souls of the righteous are in the hand of God. Their bodies are at peace, but their name lives forevermore. I will comfort those who mourn and provide solace for those who grieve, says the Lord. We've gathered here today for three reasons. We've come together to celebrate life. We are here because in some way Don's life touched ours. Second, we have gathered to mourn our loss. It is appropriate to grieve. Grief is not selfishness or faithlessness. It is an expression of love. And third, we come together to proclaim our faith, to affirm that this life is not all there is, that even the longest life is but a vapor when compared to eternity. There are no funerals that are easy. I have been in this business for a long time. It is especially hard when it is somebody that I know personally and love dearly, which is how I felt about Don. Somebody else that I care for deeply asked me what my plan was if I fall apart. And I have to say I don't actually have one. So I just hope that you can extend grace if that should happen. If it really goes to pieces, Matt Grieco is ready to step in and help out. So please stand as we sing hymn number 77 on Eagle's Wings. And I will raise you up on eagle's wings. There you come, breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of my hand, and hold you in the palm of my hand. You know, adding that little ending would have spun Don right up. It's not in the book. Please be seated. Hear now these words from Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. What gain have the workers from their toil? I have seen the business that God has given to everyone to be busy with. God has made everything suitable for its time. Moreover, God has put a sense of past and future into their minds. Yet they cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. I know that there is nothing better for them than to be happy and enjoy themselves as long as they live. Moreover, it is God's gift that all should eat and drink and take pleasure in all their toil. The great poet and philosopher Cicero wrote that the life of the dead is set in the memory of the living. So as long as we all share stories of Don and share our memories of Don, he has never truly gone from us. I invite his daughter Mary Ann to come up and share a few words about her.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to celebrate my father, Don Lester's life. A couple days after he passed, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had some ideas about what I might say at his service. I did have some wise advice that 4 o'clock in the morning ideas might not always gel so well during the day. So I had some hesitations about it. But mostly I had some hesitations because my father was a quintessential storyteller. And for me to come up and try and tell a little bit of his story is really daunting because I can really almost see him on the side, smiling in a chair, getting ready to stand up because he would want to tell his own story. So I'm very sorry that he's not here to do that today. But I want to share a few things with you. I promise I won't be too long. And hopefully everybody in the audience will also share some stories about Dad because, as Annalise said, I hope that we will remember him and with his stories. So my dad was born in Chester, Pennsylvania. And Chester's a little dicey now, but way back then it was a booming seaport. They had a wonderful downtown, and I think it was probably a wonderful place for him to grow up. His parents were Quakers. He was raised in the Quaker religion, and they were very giving people. My grandfather was in the Rotary. I'm not sure when my grandfather started in the Rotary, but his parents always gave to other people. My dad told stories about bringing servicemen into their home when during the Second World War, because it was a seaport, it was a Navy port. And I can't imagine them doing that. They lived in a 3-bedroom row home with their boys, with his grandmother. And I think a lot of people were probably doing that at the time, but it was very generous. And I'd like to think that's when my father started to get some ideas about serving others and giving to other people. So a little bit about when he was growing up. My parents were childhood friends. Their parents knew each other, and when the children were born, when my dad was born, when my mom was born, they took care of one another. And there's a really cute picture outside of my mom and dad sitting on a step in front of one of the houses when they were little. It's really cute. Although I will tell you, I don't think there's any pictures of them being cute little 5-year-olds kissing, because mom had a story about, she was the only girl. So she had a story about the boys shoving her under the porch steps of the house after they lit off a sulfur bomb. So somebody, probably my Uncle Cliff, he's on Zoom, I hope. Probably somebody with a chemistry set like him probably might have been an instigator for that, or my Uncle Clarence, I'm not sure which one. But they grew up together. She told stories about going to the beach with his family. And my dad lived in Chester. He went to Chester High School. He played football. He went on to he spent a year at Drexel, and then he went on into the Navy. He joined the Navy, and a part of that was in his obituary. But my dad served on 2 different submarines, which is just like, I also can't imagine that, because in the early 1950s, my brother has more stories about the submarine and what it was like to be on the submarine. He did not see active duty during the Korean War. He served in the Atlantic, but he was extremely proud of having served our country. During that time, when he came home from leave, he had a birthday party. His parents invited all their friends, but also his parents told my mother that she had to go to his birthday party, and they expected her to dress up and not wear her riding clothes. So everybody knows, you know my mom, she went to the party, she was a little late, she was wearing her riding clothes, and she poked her head in the door and said, "Hi, happy birthday." And she was gonna leave because she didn't want to get caught being in her riding clothes. But Dad brought her in the house, gave her some food, and then they snuck out later and went over to the barn to feed the horses. And that's really when it all started for my parents in terms of their relationship. She wouldn't marry him right away and go to Florida. She wanted to stay with the horses, and they corresponded and finally married after he was discharged from the service. And then they moved into, they bought a house in Westchester, of course, with room for the horses, and went on from there. So I will miss so many things about my father. After 88 years, there's so much to say. But growing up, he was so much fun. I swear he had more fun buying the bikes and the dirt bikes and everything, the cars and everything else, more fun than we had. And I thought back, and I was trying to think, like, where did we go out to dinner? What things did we do? We went to Burger King, and every time he asked us where we wanted to go, it was a resounding Dairy Queen. We went to Dairy Queen a lot. I know it won't shock any of you, given how much my dad liked ice cream. He was a lot of fun. I think we had the first color TV in the neighborhood, and we were always the envy of everybody because he loved to watch Star Trek with us. We always had the TV on. Not everybody else's parents were that nice. So my dad was strong. He was creative. He did a lot of work around our house. He put up fences, and I always just saw him as a strong and courageous person. He was also a person of service. Many of you from the Rotary know that he was a Rotarian for more than 50 years. And I remember the pancake breakfast. They may have been the most fun for him, given the sweets and everything else. But they also my parents took in a lot of exchange students. So I'm not sure if Christian from Chile is on the Zoom call. He's still close to them. And Lona, who's in Denmark, also keeps in touch with them. And then there were a bunch of other students, like Giovanni from Italy and another boy from Thailand. I kind of lost track after a while. They were always giving to the community through Rotary. My dad was very, very involved in different service projects. And again, there are so many, I hope that people will share some of their stories of my dad. I mean, I could talk about him learning how to ski when he was 45. or I could talk about some other things growing up, but we would be here for quite some time. And I want to close though.
And your dad would not want us to miss dessert.
No, he would not want us to miss dessert. And there's a lot of dessert downstairs. I apologize, there's not much protein down there, it's mostly sweet. So I'm just going to close with The Wizard of Oz. My dad's favorite movie was The Wizard of Oz. It was the first Technicolor movie that he saw. And throughout our life, there were all kinds of references to The Wizard of Oz. He used to, every time we asked him a question, he would answer, well, that's a horse of a different color. We never really knew what he meant, but it was all out of The Wizard of Oz. So I just wanted to share that I think that my dad, he was like the scarecrow. He had the evolving wisdom of the scarecrow. He had the courage of the lion. And he had the heart of the Tin Man. And he also always knew where home was. He was a little bit like contentious like the Wizard of Oz sometimes too. I think you guys may know that. He was quite a prankster sometimes. And I'd like to close with a quote from the Wizard of Oz. A heart is not judged by how much you love, but by how much you are loved by others. And thank you. My father was cared for and loved by very many people, and we really value that. And I could have told more stories of the bad thing.
The Wizard of Oz happens to be my favorite movie as well. I never knew that. Is there anybody else that you'd like to share? This is honoring Don's Quaker background. So if you feel led to speak, because it is being Zoomed, we do ask that you come up here and speak so that we can, our own wizard can get you on camera. Is there anybody that would like to share stories of Don?
I just wanted to share real fast. You know, my Uncle Don had a special gift, and I think everybody here knows he had the gift of storytelling. And as a little boy growing up, I just know every time that I came to visit, his stories had consistency to them. They were always fun, they were always happy, and they always had a purpose. And that was the way he told stories when I was a little boy, and even the last time that I visited with him. Last night, after we finished our dinner with the family, Tony and I went next door and had a nightcap. And we're sitting there, and the gentleman next to us started talking to us and asked, you know, why we're here, where we're from Orlando, and why we're here, family funeral. And I mentioned that he was my Uncle Don, and he was a Rotarian. And this guy sitting next to us said, wow, I'm about to join the Rotary Club of Kennett Square. And I've heard stories about someone who recently passed who was a great Rotarian. And he was talking about my Uncle Don. And so his life touched not only many people here, but also will continue to touch others. Thank you.
Great.
Hopefully I can get through this. But thank you all so much for coming and showing your support. This week has been amazing with all the people who reached out to our family and offered kindness. And that would have made Dad so proud because he was very kind. He was a role model for all of us, service and hardworking and the consummate do-it-yourselfer, which Marianne alluded to. I will say that the latter years have been harder for him because he was not able to do it himself. And he found that very frustrating. But as Marianne said, he was always young at heart. I'll never forget Hershey Park. We rode the Comet, like, I don't know how many times. At least, yeah. Anyway, but trains and train rides, his boating and fishing. he was always into doing something fun. He taught us so much and gave us many things. And our legacy to continue that in his honor.
Is there anybody else that would like to share a story of Don? Every December when my parents played Mr. and Mrs. Santa, Don would pick them up in the red convertible Mustang and drive them down Route 1. Santa and Mrs. Claus waving from the back of the car. Yes, Mr. Claus is in the back doing his thing. Surprised you didn't hop in the back of the convertible, Dad. But Don was just fantastic. He loved this church. He loved the choir. I am so grateful. We have been closed for the pandemic. We opened on July 4th, and he was able to be here for that and was eating cake. Maybe why he came, because he knew there was going to be cake. Is there anybody else that would like to share a story?
Well, let's see if I can get through this one too, but, so he was my uncle, my dad's brother. And I'm here with my twin sister and my brother and family. And Carol had an experience with Uncle Donald that was very profound for both of us. And he had a challenging life like we all do. And Carol said one day to him, "How did you do it? How did you get through?" And he said, "I just woke up the next day and put my oar back in the water." And it's been helpful for me. We just get up and we keep paddling. So thank you for that, Uncle Donald. Thank you for that strength that you passed down to your family. Mm-hmm.
He was loved. And loved is a good one.
I guess so.
Don loved being in our choir, and the other two gentlemen, Kurt and Rob, who are both here today, would stand next to him, and Don didn't read music, so he would have notes all over his music. Go back here, or don't sing here, big, don't sing, and sometimes he would sing anyway, so Don and Rob would give him a little nudge, like, oh, nope, not yet.
I'm Donald's granddaughter, the oldest grandchild, and daughter of Patricia and David. And I don't have a story because he was just a wonderful presence for us as a grandfather. I wanted to just get up on behalf of all the grandkids and say what a presence he had in our lives, reading stories, just keeping things light, telling jokes, always egging us on. And, you know, he was really important to all of us. And I think one of the great joys that I was really happy to be able to share with him before he passed was sharing grandchildren with him. So that was just wonderful. And thank you all for being here and showing support to our family.
Members of the church, remember that we have a time every Sunday, kind of open sharing of joys and concerns, and Don would talk about the upcoming weddings, and then he would immediately follow that with, and I really want to be a great grandfather. And I would say the same thing my mom tried to tell my dad, like, it's not up to you, like, it's back, give the kids a chance to get settled. And he kept saying, and then when he came in and got to announce the babies, he was so excited. Is there anybody else that would like to share?
Hi, I'm really honored to be here and part of the consider myself almost part of the Lester family. One of the things I want to talk about or speak to is the fact of I was always raised to appreciate consistency in behavior, and someone who's always there and always been there for you. Donald. I lost my parents at different times, and every time I looked up, there was Don, wanting to help out with the shoulder. He was there for a wedding. Betty Ann and Don danced at my wedding, and it was wonderful. We saw it on videotape. So it's been good times and some bad times with you. Don was always there with that same consistent behavior. You can always depend on him to be there. I called him different things about, Don, this washing machine doesn't work right. Well, good heavens, I'll tell you how to work that. I can hear him saying it right now. So he was always there. And one of the things you take for granted, people in your lives who always act the same way, people you can always depend on. And the whole Lester family, as far as I'm concerned, has been a major part of my life. And I've always been able to think of you guys as really true friends. Love you guys dearly. Thank you.
As many of you, I've been a friend of Don's for a long time. And one of the little stories is we used to ski together. And one year we were up in the Poconos. And about 8 o'clock in the morning, we were going to have some breakfast. And we walked into this diner with my kids, and I forget who else was there. And they're ready to sit down to have breakfast. But Don spots a big row of candles across the top of the room over the counter. And he asked to have that one cantaloupe cut in half and filled with ice cream. I don't think my kids, who are much older now, ever forgot that. But Don didn't even need a building or a church. Don just carried religion and along inside him. It was just part of him. And his niece was talking about hard times, putting the oar back in the water. And I asked Don about that one time, and he had a different answer to me. He said, there's a black hole left in your heart. And he said, sometimes it shows itself and it retracts, and other times it comes out again. And he said, you just learn to live with it and be part of it. And there are so many things that I learned from Don. You know, each of us kind of made up of people we've met along the way. We take attributes that we like and we make them part of ourselves. And I can only hope that some part of me are things that I learned from Don. Here.
Is there anybody else? Not, I invite you to continue sharing the stories downstairs. There's a lot of dessert down there. Continue sharing the stories with the family in the days and weeks and months and years to come. Think of a Don story, reach out to one of them and let them know. I'm sure it will bring them much joy. Clifford Lester is Don's older brother, and he wrote the following for me to read to you. After they made pop, they broke the mold, said Don at our father's funeral. His life proves he was wrong. He was his father's son and a family man through and through. Don made sure that each day he put his oar in, whether for the duties he assumed in his Rotary career, the business he carried on after our father died, helping others in need, or carrying out the daily duties of family life. He loved restoring old cars, especially his vintage Rolls Royce. For years, he would drive couples to and from their weddings. He restored a Ford Mustang, in which he drove veterans in the Memorial Day parades in Kennett Square. A high point in the life of his college-age nephew came when Don invited him to spend a summer together restoring an MG, which then successfully made the trip west. Don and I finally realized we loved each other in our mid-teens. We have spent many hours in each other's company during family visits and memorable trips together. For me, the trip from Miami to Chester in Don's 1930 Model A Ford, as we each completed our service periods in 1955, and the California road trip we took as we visited my family in Corte Madera and Crowley Lake in 2017, stand out as especially meaningful coming at both ends of our lives. We played the computer game Civilization almost every day for the past 20 years, talked on the phone for an hour a week, and for the last year and a half, we visited on FaceTime every evening for a half hour or so. Don was especially pleased with the fellowship he found in this church, the pastor and the choir. I know that you will miss him, as do we, his family. Thank you. That was Clifford Lester. I invite you now to sit as we listen to Amazing Grace and just reflect. Think of Don and how much he loved all of us.
I want the piano. There we are.
Jeff. Hear now these words from John's Gospel. Let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there ye may be also. And whither I go you know, and the way you know. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Ye have heard how I said unto you, I go away, and come again unto you. If ye loved me, ye would rejoice, because I said, I go unto the Father, for my Father is greater than I. And now I have told you before it come to pass, that when it is come to pass, you might believe. Hereafter I will not talk much with you, for the prince of this world cometh, but that the world may know that I love the Father, and as the Father gave me commandment, even so I do. Arise and let us go. The words of the Lord. Thanks be to God. God never sees his children die. He simply sees them coming home. It is said that when one of his church members was dying, John Watson, the Scottish preacher of Edinburgh, would kneel down and whisper in the person's ear, "In my Father's house are many mansions." And then with a contented sigh, the person would slip away entirely unafraid. There is something about this great portion of Scripture that consoles us. If we could see only for a moment just how glorious John's homecoming was, nobody here would call him back to the limits of an aging body. I imagined his son greeting him and showing Don to his mansion. I imagine Don being greeted by all those who he has loved who have gone before him, his parents and his brother. Even though Don will be missed, there's something appropriate about his departure. As we read earlier in Ecclesiastes, there's a time to be born and a time to die. It is appropriate because he had lived out a full and complete life. He had known the love of God and of family. His house was in order. One person said there is nothing more certain than death and nothing more unsure than life. Life in our temporal bodies and life here on this earth is temporary. The Bible refers to our bodies as tents. And for a little while, a tent can be a wonderful home. When a hiker's in the mountains enjoying the wonderful outdoors, the tent can be exactly what he or she needs when they become weary and need a place to rest and be refreshed. Tents are wonderful for their intended purpose, but a person doesn't expect to live in a tent forever. Before long, a person wants to go home and live in a house, a structure more permanent and sturdy than a tent. Jesus says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. In my Father's house are many mansions, dwelling places. I go to prepare a place for you so that where I am, there you may be also." Tents are good for a purpose and helpful for a season, but they can wear out. The fabric becomes weak and torn, and the poles can collapse. The Apostle Paul, speaking of the confidence possessed by a believer like Don, said, "Now we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven. Therefore, we are always confident and know that as long as we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord, and we live by faith and not by sight." When somebody that we love passes on, there's an element of sorrow. When you've been around somebody for many years. The morning that I was over there that Don passed away, and Betty Ann said that 64 years just weren't enough. So when you've been around for someone for many years, or like his grandkids when he's been around your entire lives, you miss them when they're gone. There's no question. But I want you to be comforted by the joy that Don had, because he knew the reality of God's love. He knew the reality of forgiveness. He knew the reality of heaven. He knew the reality of eternity. And he knew the reality of future reunions. Weeping may endure for the night. Our human emotions need a release, but joy will come in the morning. An earthly light has gone out, but where dawn is, there is no light that is needed. The glory of God, shining brighter than the sun, is Dawn's radiance. Dawn's face is now glistening in the glorious light. So we come to the end of a journey, end of Dawn's life. An earthly journey has ended, but a heavenly residence has been established. Right now, Dawn is preparing mansions for us, waiting to greet us when we are called home. Thanks be to God. I invite you now to continue time of reflection as Bill and Mary Lou offer as the dear. And if I'm going to cry, they're going down. They're going to cry.
Show my soul long and happily. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You're my friend, and you are my brother, even though you are a king. I love you more than any other, so much more than anything. You alone are my strength, my shield. You alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. I want you more than gold or silver, only you alone can satisfy. You alone are the real joy giver and the apple of my eye. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you.
I want to thank my congregation for being an amazing kind of church that somebody as wonderful as Don would want to be part of. For all the ways in which you loved him and took care of him and celebrated with him. Kurt and Rob being in the choir and making sure that he got up the stairs safely, and Carol and just everybody. Don was a really important part of this church, and we were so lucky to have him. So thank you for sharing him with us. Okay. Is this what you meant, Rob?
That's it.
All right, would you pray with me, please? Lord of all worlds, we bless your name for all those who have entered into their rest, especially for your beloved servant Don. He's reached the promised land and sees you face to face. Give us the grace to follow in his footsteps, as he followed in the footsteps of your Son. Keep alive in us the memory of those dear to us whom you have called home. Grant that every remembrance which turns our hearts from things seen to things unseen may lead us always upwards towards you, till we too come to our eternal rest. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, who taught us to pray by saying together, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Please stand as we sing, O Little Town of Bethlehem. I was told that he hummed this pretty much all year round.
How still we see God, above thy deep and dreamless sleep, the silent stars go by. Yet in thy dark streets shine the everlasting light. And fears of all the years are written thee tonight. For Christ is born of Mary, and gathered all around. While mortals sleep, the angels keep their watch above the ground. The morning stars together proclaim the holy birth. Your voices raised to God in praise, and peace to all on earth. How silent we, how silent we, the wondrous gift is given. So God imparts to human hearts the joys of pious faith. No ear may hear Christ's calling, but in this world of sin, many souls will receive him still, and hear Christ enters in. O holy child of Bethlehem, He sent to us sweet rain, cast out our sin and enter in, be born in us today. We hear the Christmas angels, the great glad tidings tell. Oh, come to us, abide with us, our God Emmanuel.
Please be seated. This was a poem that Betty Ann had that seemed perfect for today. To those I love. When I am gone, release me, let me go. I have so many things to see and do. You mustn't tie yourself to me with too many tears, but be thankful we had so many good years. I gave you my love, and you can only guess how much you've given me in happiness. I thank you for the love that you've shown, but now it is time I traveled alone. So grieve for me a while, if grieve you must, then let your grief be comforted by trust. It is only for a while that we must part, so treasure the memories within your heart. I won't be far away, for life goes on, and if you need me, call, and I will come. Though you can't see or touch me, I will be near. And if you listen with your heart, you'll hear all my love around you, soft and clear. And then when you come this way alone, I'll greet you with a smile and a welcome home. Again, thank you all for coming. Please come downstairs, go out the door to your right and down the stairs. There's a lovely dessert reception and a slideshow of pictures, and the family would love for you to join them, have a sweet or two in honor of Don, and continue telling the stories. And now, as you leave this place, go knowing that the love of God surrounds you anywhere and everywhere that you might go. Amen.
Hopefully he's still on.
Yeah.